Hello everyone. Thank you for watching the video. Wishing you all good health and peace. The fierce rain from last night had stopped. The morning sunlight seeped through the gaps in the hut's roof, casting a warm glow on Dieu Han's weary, yet resolute face. She stirred slightly, glancing down at her child, still sound asleep in her arms. Gently stroking the baby's cheek, she whispered, "The sun is out today. We'll have a better day, won't we?" The baby let out a soft murmur, half opened their eyes, then drifted back into peaceful slumber. Dieu Han sat up and stepped outside, taking a deep breath of the crisp morning air. She knew she had to clean up the hut after the damp night. Grabbing a cloth, she made her way to the stream, knelt by the water's edge and scrubbed it thoroughly. The cool, clear stream shimmered under the sunlight, instantly refreshing her senses. Once she finished washing, she wrung out the cloth and carried it back to the hut to wipe everything down. The small hut was still damp, and the earthy ground felt cold. She carefully wiped every corner, smoothing out the sleeping area for her child. After tidying up, she stepped outside, gathering bricks and wooden logs to build a small stove just outside the door. Using large stones as a base, she constructed a sturdier cooking spot than before. With everything set, she returned inside, cradled her child and lovingly nursed them, preparing herself for another long day of hard work. After finishing her preparations, Dieu Han wrapped her child against her chest and left the hut. She knew she had to reinforce their shelter. Otherwise, storms like last night's would only bring them more suffering. Gripping a machete, she followed a narrow path leading up the hill, where clusters of bamboo grew thick and strong. The sturdy, vibrant green stalks were exactly what she needed to rebuild the hut's floor and roof. She selected the most solid bamboo stalks and swung her blade with force, each strike echoing through the quiet surroundings. Once she had cut enough, she gathered the bamboo, hoisted it onto her shoulders, and carried it back with determined steps. Each step was heavy. Sweat drenched her back, dripping down her temples, but she pressed on without hesitation. When she reached the hut, she dropped the bamboo to the ground and leaned on her knees, panting heavily. Yet her eyes remained filled with determination. She used the machete to strip away smaller branches, then bent and flattened each stalk to prepare for flooring. Once the bamboo was ready, she tightly secured each piece to the ground with rope, gradually forming a sturdier, more stable floor. With each secured plank, she felt the hut growing stronger, no longer a damp, fragile shelter against the rain. Her hands burned from the friction against the bamboo, but she only paused to wipe the sweat from her face before continuing. Seeing the firm floor beneath her, she didn't stop. She headed back to the hill, this time to cut bundles of thatch grass for the roof. She bent down, gathering handfuls of the long grass, tying them into thick bundles. Lifting the heavy bundles onto her shoulders, she made her way back to the hut, sweat rolling down her skin, but her steps remained steady. Upon arriving, she didn't take a moment to rest. She immediately climbed onto the hut's frame, securing each thatch bundle over the leaking roof. The wind howled, causing her to sway, but she gripped the bamboo frame tightly, fastening each bundle one by one to ensure a sturdier, more protective cover. After hours of labor, the hut finally stood stronger than before, with no more gaps for rain to seep through. When everything was done, she sat down, exhaled deeply, and pulled out the last half of her instant noodles, chewing each bite slowly to regain her strength. She gazed at the hut, a small smile forming on her lips. At the very least, it was now a safer place for her and her child to stay. There were still many hardships ahead, but she knew there was still a path forward. After repairing the hut and filling her stomach with the last bit of instant noodles, Dieu Han wrapped her child against her chest and set out for the stream to gather snails. Hunger gnawed at her, but she had no choice. She needed to find more food today, and if she was lucky, she might even sell some to buy milk for her child. Following a narrow, overgrown path, she stepped into the cool stream, carefully scooping up layers of mud from the bottom with her hands. Under the gentle morning sunlight, the crystal-clear water reflected ripples as schools of fish lazily swam beneath the surface. She bent down, feeling along the edges of rocks, flipping over each stone to find the snails clinging tightly underneath. Her hands sank into the muddy water, searching through submerged roots until she uncovered plump, round snails one by one. She picked them up and dropped them into a bamboo tube she had brought along, slowly filling it with her harvest. Some snails were hidden deep in crevices between rocks, forcing her to dig harder, pushing away mud to get a clearer view. The icy water seeped into her skin, but she remained patient and persistent. Once she had gathered a decent amount, she sat down on a smooth stone, stretching her aching arms. Looking at the bamboo tube full of snails, she smiled faintly, relieved to have food for the day and a small hope of making some extra money. She emptied the snails to sort through them, setting aside the larger ones to sell while keeping the rest for a meal. With everything ready, she left the stream and walked toward the market, clutching the bamboo tube tightly, her step steadier than before. When she arrived, she hesitantly called out, "Fresh river snails. Anyone want to buy?" At first, no one paid attention, but as some curious shoppers stopped to take a look, the fresh, plump snails caught their interest. "These snails look great. I'll take some," one customer said. Her heart lifted as she made her first few sales, managing to sell a good portion of what she had collected. Clutching the hard-earned money in her hands, Dieu Han held it tightly, her heart brimming with hope. Today she had enough to buy milk for her child and prepare a proper meal. She knew now despair no longer consumed her. Leaving the market, she headed home, stopping by the hillside to gather lemongrass and chili, preparing for a hot, hearty meal after a long day of hard work. Back at the hut, Dieu Han gently placed her child down in their sleeping spot before quickly rolling up her sleeves to light the fire, preparing the first proper meal she had had in days. She poured the snails into a basket, carefully washing them clean. Then, with practiced hands, she smashed the lemongrass with a knife and finally chopped the chili, her movement swift and precise, as if she had done this countless times before. As the oil in the pan heated up, she tossed in the snails. A loud sizzling sound filled the air, and soon, the rich aroma of lemongrass and chili spread throughout the hut. Stirring the snails with her chopsticks, she felt a deep hunger rising within her, but she remained patient, carefully seasoning the dish to perfection. In no time, the steaming hot, spicy stir-fried snails were ready. She sat down inside the hut, placing her child beside her, gently blowing on each snail to cool it before taking a bite. The bold flavors, fragrant, spicy, and savory, filled her senses, momentarily washing away the exhaustion of the long day. As she ate, she spoke softly to her child, her voice tender and full of love. Looking around at the sturdy hut, the warm fire, and the simple yet satisfying meal before her, she felt a newfound sense of relief and peace. After finishing her meal, she held her child close, gently patting them, her gaze drifting toward the lush green hills in the distance. She knew that many hardships still lay ahead, but today was better than yesterday, and tomorrow, she would strive even harder. Dieu Han's survival journey continues. What will she do next to care for her child and build a new life? Stay tuned for the next episode to see what new challenges await her.
Cuộc đời là một con đường dài, nơi giấc mơ hòa tan thực tại. Buồng bước chân ta bắt xây dần bức tranh vẽ lên thử thách lớn. Những nỗi đau niềm vui tạm bợ tạo nên muôn màu sắc cuộc đời. Dù cuộc sống đôi khi thử thách, những đam mê vẫn trực chào cháy. Hãy sống với đam mê cháy bỏng, đừng chờ đợi mà hãy thực hiện những khoảnh khắc quý giá lắm, đừng để thời gian trôi xa. Giữa bộn bề cuộc sống tìm chút bình yên, trong trái tim lặng lẽ nơi còn phiền. Giọt sương mai đọng trên lá xanh, đem lại niềm vui cuộc sống vắng tanh. Ánh sáng mặt trời dọi qua mây, dù mưa giông vẫn đang đong đầy. Trong lòng chứa đầy hy vọng, ngày mai sáng tươi chờ đợi ta. Bước đi trên con đường đầy hoa, dẫu khó khăn không lùi bước. Trong tim giữ trọn niềm tin, cuộc sống này mãi